Anchi Kiowa. Hello, how are you all? Welcome to Homelands special edition for August 9th, 2025, the day after my 54th birthday and my very first solo show. So, this is Auntie Andy. Welcome to Homelands, Homelands of the Métis and Treaty 6 territory on CFCR Community Radio 90.5 FM in Saskatoon, Homelands of the Métis and Treaty 6 territory. Dishni Kashoon. My name is Andrea Letting. Call me Auntie Angie if you like, and I'll be your host over this next hour. Usually I have a guest, and you can see it, all my guests, if you go to YouTube and go to Homelands and Google any of their names, including David FineDay, Norm Fleury, our very first guest who opened things up in a good way. We have amazing guests such as Equal, Lindsay Knight, Danny Knight, her cousin, Sean Cuthand, Randy Morin, Joseph Natauhow, Juliana McLean, and so many more, including people who are even Maori Indigenous people. And she talks about being Tatahuarwanga, which is a Maori word that I've just botched, that means in your own space and time. And it's a beautiful notion. We're all neurodivergent in various ways. No two people are alike, and that's the miracle of life. So that's what I've come to celebrate today. I'm recording this on 08/08, 2025, my 54th birthday, and I never thought I'd make it this far. When I was 14 years old, I thought, I don't know how I'm going to keep going, Creator. And what kept me going, and Maria knows this story, is I saw that book, Half Breed, in my school library, and I never read it. I read the first paragraph and I go, oh, she got it. And I could touch a book and tell what was in it, and I could tell there was something missing from that book, and I knew what it was. And I would always put that book facing me on the book rack, the spinning book rack, in the library, the grade 7 to 9 school that was a convent that my grandmother had attended, and I could feel um, the presence of sad people in it. Just like when I did a job interview in Edmonton for a paper, and they very much wanted to hire me and take all my kids there, but um, my 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 abuser had unfortunately just moved from the Edmonton area, and my lawyer said I had to ask his permission for us to move, and he said, "Well, if you need my permission, you can't have it." Just like he said when I was 29, single with 7 kids in 6 pregnancies in 9 years, and said, well, if you want to move on, I just want an annulment. And he said, well, then that's the one thing you can't have. And that's how abusers work. Um, he's still playing games with my kids all these years later. And yeah, it's hard being a DV survivor 54 years because it wasn't just him. He was just one man among many. And today, on my birthday, thanks to the Elizabeth Fry Society, who I called for help, they said, go to the Listen Project. You get 2 hours free with a lawyer. And I went and talked to a lawyer about my experiences as a woman. And just for a few minutes, she had emergency court that she had to go to. And she said, well, you can decide whether you want to go criminal or civil. Maybe both. Maybe class action. I haven't decided yet. I'll decide on Monday, August 11th. But it's nice to have choices for once. And so I'm very grateful to the women in this city and this province. Province, I call it in quotation marks, air quotes, because really it is the Northwest and this country. And you can spell that however you want, but we all know that Mother Earth is female. Nobody ever says Father Earth. And we as women are the ones who hold the world in our hands. And that includes if you believe in Creator. Creator is not a man. There's God the Father, if you believe in the Trinity, and God the Son, if you believe in the Trinity, and God the Holy Spirit, who is the mother who precedes the Father and the Son, but subservient to both and helper to both. But yeah, woman was created last in that legend, that story, that creation story that most people purport to believe in if they're Judeo-Christian or Muslim, because they all come from one book. And the 12 tribes is like all peoples. We're all in one big amazing story. And no matter what you believe, I've got you, you know. If you believe stories are just stories, hey, I am the word, you know. And if you believe that you are your very own creator and you made yourself, great, good for you. You know, I know the creator. I'm creator's girl. I'm infinity girl. I figured out when I was 8 years old this time, the age of reason, that I was born on 08/08/1971. 9 minus 1 was 8. 7 plus 1 was 8. I was infinity girl from the 4 directions. I was the number 8. Um, and if I have to be born again on a Sunday, which I was, I'll make it 88 minutes after 8 exactly. I'll hold on till then. My mother will resent me even more. My mother, God bless her, was a social worker who had lost her mother, and so she was trying to keep families together. And that was a lost cause back in the 60s and 70s. The government was deliberately trying to rip families apart. But she worked with Gordon Tatusis, and the two of them very creatively would make all kinds of plans about keeping families together. And she has all kinds of funny adventures, including one she told my daughters and I that I'd never heard on my road to North Battleford, where she would take me to have dental work because the dentists in our town, knowing I was the doctor's daughter, which will be my biography if I ever write one, one title, one chapter, or maybe the whole thing, um, they would rip my teeth out and put fillings in that I didn't need starting in grade 3 in the student health, you know. So stool abuse has happened to all of us. You don't have to go to the IRS to be abused in schools. I've talked to lots of people about this. That's the reason I homeschooled. And my kids were amazing. They were musicians, and they still are. Um, Provincial debate winners, and they still are, although one of my sons was very mad because some parents phoned me and said, for this argument, how would you win? And I said, well, so you're asking for your daughter? And they said, yes. And I said, so you can't figure it out yourselves? And they said, well, no. And I said, okay, so you're going to tell her the answer? And they said, well, yeah. And my son was sitting there listening to it all. And I said, I see. And you're not letting her think for herself. And they're like, well, she couldn't figure it out and we can't figure it out. And I said, okay. Well, what I would do is I'd say this, 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 this. And they said, oh, that's brilliant. We would never have thought of that. And I said, yeah, but if you use that argument now, you'll be cheating and she'll be cheating. And they said, oh. And I said, yeah, just so you know. And my son's listening. And he would never use this argument because he didn't think of it himself. But if we discussed it, he would have come up with it. And then went, oh. And then they used it and she won the provincial debates. And she was so victorious because she'd finally beat that guy. And he was like, you cheated. I got second place because your parents phoned my mom for the answer. He said that in front of the SAS party guy that was there. Well, maybe he was a federal. Anyways, he went on to something else that night. And I was kind of like, well, you could have stayed for the awards banquet, but I understand why you didn't want to. And you had made a quick commitment to something else. So I'm very proud of all my kids. And people who cheat, they suck. But, you know, cheaters going to cheat. Cheaters never prosper. His older brother won the provincial. And he deserved first place too, and everybody knew it. So I'm not saying that any community is perfect. You know, homeschool communities are still made of families, and families still do crappy things to each other sometimes. We're all one big human family, you know. And little David FineDay, that's his email at gmail.com, talked about this last week. The episode, which I hope you go see, when he talked about being taken from his family at 5 years old. And he tried to return at 18, and they were so broken at that point that he was on the streets, which happens to most foster kids. You know, so when you see someone on the street, they've been government scooped most likely, broken by foster home after foster home, and then thrown on the streets at 18 with no social assistance, no life skills, nothing that they need, only brokenness. And then people walk over them like they're speed bumps, just like when I broke my leg, my ankle in front of the Midtown this winter. And people were like, how inconvenient. You know, that's what COVID's done to us. stepped over me like I was a speed bump. And I knew my ankle was broken, but I was afraid somebody else was going to get hurt. So I hobbled up to the second floor and said, my ankle's broken. If you could get me some first aid and go ice that. And then I just want, I'm going to have a walking boot and probably crutch parts. I have my own crutches, but I need new pieces for them. Well, they said, we'll immediately secure the security video footage. And I said, great. And they said, and then we'll give you the names of so-and-so, but we can't talk to you anymore. And I went, okay. And then a very nice lady wrapped my ankle for me. She did a very good job. And they said, should we call an ambulance? And I said, well, no, then my car will get towed. I'll drive myself. I had soup to make for the homeless the next day. And I knew if I went to emergency, I would just spend hours sitting there because my great uncle, Emmett Hall, he was the Chief Justice Supreme Court who invented Medicare, was Treaty 6 lawyer, which is where Medicare comes from. The medicine chest clause, which all Indigenous people know, or most do. A medicine for all people in times of need, Treaty 6. And yeah, I'm a bit of a legacy project. I remember the last time I went to see a judge, I had a dream of my Uncle Emmett saying, it's going to be all right, my girl. And of course, he's been long gone. He was my grandmother's older brother. And I was named for her. Eileen, was dead before I ever came earthside, and I know everything that happened to her because I remember being in heaven, and if all of you guys would think about it, you would too. We're all from heaven, and we're all meant to go back there. Here, police sirens. My favorite sound, which I would love to play right now, but I don't have anything queued up, is KRS-One, Sound of the Police. Whoop, whoop, that's the sound of the police. Whoop, whoop, that's the sound of the beast. Whoop, whoop, that's the sound of the police. Whoop, whoop, that's the sound of the beast. And yeah, I play that loud with the windows down in the hood, and people smile and give me a thumbs up. And as a DV survivor, I can tell you I'm no friend of the police. They did worse to me, and I said to my kids, you know what, you can't call the cops. There's only one of your dad, you know, and they've been entering my house illegally ever since I had one. And entering more than that, I'll tell you that much. But let's keep this child rated. It's a Saturday morning. They do that to more than just me too. Everybody's scared of the cops in this town, but I'm not. I know what they do. And as a journalist, I've been told story after story, and they've said, you should write about that. And I've gone, I'll give leads. I'll give leads to journalists, and stories will get told. There's a lot of journalists that owe me a lot of stories. Sometimes I'll point people that tell me stories in the right direction. I'll say, try this, reporter. And very quietly, I've made the biggest difference I possibly could while trying to keep my own physical body safe. And at 54, you may have heard of Idle No More, which founded here. And me and one of my daughters went to the Midtown with everybody else, and we were all going, hey, good to see you here. Hey, how's it going? Hey, what time is it? And then we drummed and we sang and we took over the Midtown, and they all shut their doors in a panic. Well, we had a round dance and it was awesome. And then me and my daughter went back into some of the stores, and they were like, did you see that? That was really scary. There were Indians everywhere. And we were like, oh, yeah, how about that? It's like you're on Treaty 6 and Homelands of the Métis. And Idle No More is also being persecuted by CSIS and the police right now. They're very carefully watching their step as women who stood up to yet more illegal laws and said, no, the women are the protectors of the lands and the water. And there's an Indigenous saying that says, until the hearts of our women are on the ground, our people will never be defeated. And the police know exactly that. What's what redcoats were invented for. FineDay at Cut Knife Hill, Chief FineDay, David's great-great-great-grandfather, he's the son of the son of the son of the son. That's why he's hereditary war chief, even though he's legally blind. And the second he went in front of city council, he got an eviction notice that afternoon. That was the only time I've ever been to city council. I carefully ducked around the cameras that are always trained on me for some reason as a journalist. And I just went, wonder what's going to happen to David. And they built a fence around his apartment, which is by fire marshal law should be illegal because now they can't get out of the building if it starts on fire. And when David made a complaint about a fire code issue, his landlord evicted him again, saying, I know it was you, you little rat, the fire department told me. So I don't know whose side the fire department's on. I always kind of hoped they were the good guys. The police were like, we'll send the fire department to chop your door down if you don't unlock it. And I like to play the Three Little Pigs. Who's afraid of the big bad wolf, the big bad wolf, the big bad wolf? And they huff and they puff. And if someone unlocks my door, then they can blow it down and they come in. Unfortunately, people do have keys to my house. And, my old house didn't have a lock on the door. So they were the only beanies I was ever afraid of. Yeah, drunks would walk in. We were very close to the hose and hydrant on 918 11th Street. You can go there and see that the house is gone for the crime of housing the homeless. My parents had to pay fines. That was my divorce property, and I had to swap it to try and get somewhere safe so that my youngest three could finish high school, which all of them had trouble doing. We seem to be targets in this city by students, by staff. Yeah, I guess as DV survivors, you know, they can smell a victim a mile away. Not victims, we're survivors, and we are resilient AF. You know, so yeah, I'm not ashamed. I've had people say, oh, I would never tolerate that. Well, you don't effing tolerate it. It's not like you have a choice. It's not like you wake up one day and go, you know what, I'd kind of like to be punched in the head where nobody can see it, or with a phone book so there's no bruises, or maybe so I have to lie about how I got broken ribs or not have them treated at all because they'll take my kids away. I think that sounds fun. FFUN. there's a company in town. I've heard stories about. Apparently, they have a special repo room where people cry when they lose their toys. Anyways, this town, I call it Crazy Town sometimes. My phone always corrects it to Saskatoon, which I think is really funny. But it was originally Miss Saskatoon, which is just Saskatoon berries, service berries as they're called in the States. And I'm actually American on my grandfather's side. All the Lettings come from one American infant who was kidnapped when his mother took sick. It was winter, and the 3-year-old went to the family with kids so that they could take care of her, and the infant went to a childless couple. They said he might not survive, but the best chance he has is with these people who don't have any kids, because maybe they can feed him the cow's milk, or she can learn how to lactate or something. We don't know what to do because mom might be dying. And so that was what happened. And when the winter was over and she'd recovered, they went to pick up their kids. They got their 3-year-old, and then they went to the place where the Andersons, E-N or O-N, I don't know, but they settled up north near PA, up near where Scott Moe killed a mother, and he is going to jail, folks. He is. I will lead that charge myself. He's burning the forests down to displace more Indigenous peoples, the ones that he apologized to the 60 Scoop and did 60 Scoop circles so he could scoop kids better. In the foyer of the legislature, where he danced with them holding hands, and won't give them their records and won't give them their social services, and he's on their land. You all are, but I like to think you're relatives. Scott Moe's sister was married to one of my cousins, and he could not meet my eyes on the Chief Mr. Wass's bridge. And yeah, he's my in-law. I'll be very happy when he goes to jail for killing a mother. And then saying, oh yeah, real sorry about that. I drove away because I was drunk, like all the Sask party, drunk on power, drunk on alcohol in a temperance colony. Yeah, just plain old drunk. I don't like alcohol. I never have. It just enhances what's inside of you. Didn't really have much effect on me ever. I'm mostly Irish and a little Viking, like I've said in my Homelands introductions before. I can just say school, and it goes straight to Asgard. so, and as an Irish person, there's nobody that could ever drink me under the table. And all the kids I grew up with know it because they tried to like give me alcohol poisoning, and I was just like, it doesn't work. I just go for a jog, man. It makes me feel like house cleaning, which I hate because I grew up house cleaning, and then I grew up as my adulthood being beat with a broom for not house cleaning fast enough while giving birth while working. My three youngest were very surprised when I got a check from the post office for working PSAC jobs, women's work, and getting paid less than the men. I was like, a couple thousand. And I was like, not nearly enough. I worked right up till my son went into labor with June 28th. And I got the Canada Day weekend off, 3 days in Waskesiu recovering from birth. And then I went back to work because by provincial labor standards, I had enough for maternity leave, but by PSAC, I didn't. Thank God for unions, right? So everybody at the post office knew I was pregnant and lifting heavy objects all night. And while my other two kids cried at the window every night because they were being left alone with their dad. And then he would bring the baby to get fed. And the baby would sometimes be neglected until he brought it. And he said, "What? I can't feed it, so I can't do anything." And yeah, great dad, right? So, anyways, I would get speeding tickets on my way to work because they'd always have radar traps for me everywhere. I got seatbelt tickets when I was pregnant with the twins because I couldn't get the seatbelt over me, and I was going to play piano for a church that would give me $25. That was how I fed my family. And yeah, I always said, Creator, I can't possibly do this. You're going to have to pay my bills. And guess what? Creator always has. And whenever anybody's asked me for anything, I've said, absolutely. And what else can I give you? When homeless people ask me for things, I'm like, sure, what do you need? I don't have any money, but I've got a credit card. Usually I had a credit card, not always. And I've always been able to somehow pay my credit cards off, no matter what people have done to me. So you can email me at lettingfreelancing@gmail.com. My nickname is Moneyfingers because I work with brands and I work with fundraising and I work with all kinds of impossible things on impossible timelines, and the money always rolls in for other people because I work for Creator. Creator is my boss and always has been and always will be. And yeah, that's why I founded Homelands during COVID. I do have another boss. You may have heard of him before, John Lajemondier. And last year around Christmas, just prior actually, it was more like November 16th, around then, which is the hanging of Louis Riel, a duly elected MP who founded Manitoba. And I've seen his letters in his own handwriting at the St. Boniface Museum, where I was conceived, not at the museum, but I remember more than I should about everything in my life. And my parents were there. My dad was interning, and my mom was a social worker trying to keep families together. She would pray the rosary at noon hour in front of Louis Riel's grave and then complain about how I turned out for the rest of her life. God bless her soul. You know, I love my mom, but it's hard to lose your mother, and she was always preparing me for that, right? My t-shirt, if you can't see it because you're not on YouTube, says "Keeping It Real," and it's got a picture of him. And right under his mustache, there's a small bannock stain. I made a whole bunch of bannock for the homeless for my birthday, and I got a huge pot of soup. Be given that out at midnight on 20th Street, where I was born, quite proudly. And we would drive in to see my grandfather at 918 11th Street East, a war veteran who navigated by starlight to get the weather reports so everybody else would be safe. And one time he did get a bullet right through the crease of his crotch of his pants. And my mom had not been born yet, and she would not have been. the other direction. And I was the angel that made sure that bullet went through the pants fabric. My street name is Angel, and I would never have been born if things had come differently that time. You know, we're all miracles, each one of us. We're all made from stardust, and to stardust we shall return. And that's a beautiful thing, you know. But this earth, this beautiful Mother Earth that we have, is a gift. It is a gift, and it is in danger. You know, so when I say we need to put the unity and community in Saskatoon, I mean this is ground zero. It was a temperance colony founded by John Lake and people fleeing alcohol-fueled violence in the East. And the East was full of wasps. Wasps, you know what wasps stand for. But they're the people who think they know Jesus and say, have you found Jesus yet? To people who already have him or don't need him at all because they're already righteous in whatever they practice and preach. And they're all going to hell. And I may visit them and I may let them out. But if you think you've got a corner on Yeshua, which is his Hebrew name, or Isho, which is his Palestinian Aramaic name, because Aramaic was what he spoke. He went to Egypt as a baby. Have you paid attention to the story? They had to flee violence, state violence, as a tribe. I don't know. You know, there's not much changes in the world. And Joseph probably thought, Yusuf probably thought poor Miriam had an encounter, unfortunate, with Roman soldiers. She was probably only about 12 when she said yes to Creator. And he was like, oh, that poor girl, she was not even old enough. And this happened to her. I'll divorce her and quietly put her away so she doesn't get stoned, because that was the punishment. You were stoned to death if you were found to be pregnant out of wedlock. Public stonings still occur. We're at the break for Homelands. We will be right back after these brief messages from CFCR 90.5 FM in Saskatoon, CFCR.ca, Saskatoon's community radio. Let's put the unity in community. And for those of you watching on YouTube, I'm just saving the first half of the show. Wait. So, find someone. ANTIE, ANDIE. Bleeding, which is my powwow name. Senator Lillian Dick took me to a FSIN honoring murdered and missing powwow as a journalist, and I'm like, I'm not going in the grand entrance. She said, yes, you are. You're coming with me in the grand entrance. No, I'm not. And it was pretty much empty. I just was like, I'm not going to do that. She was like, yes, you are. And she made me. She made me do it. And it was me and the youth delegate for FSIN left in the center. And we were the 3 RCMP, and I was like, not the RCMP. And there was one that I've known since way before she was RCMP. We went to SIFC together, which is now FNUC, great name for a university. And Karen Pelche, she's retired now. And yeah, I respect the heck out of her. And she's like, you take the RCMP to task. You tell them to investigate themselves because nobody else can investigate them. It's a problem I'm going to deal with bit by bit, and you heard it here. But now we'll do the second half of Homelands, and we won't tell the RCMP because they can see me coming. They've harassed me out of Star Phoenix jobs and all kinds of jobs. And we all know, if you've read the recent edition of Half-Breed, what they did to her. And her publisher promised her that would be in the book, and it wasn't. And they've continued to harass her. just like they harass me. See. CSIS has been monitoring me since I was in my 20s. Say CSIS surveillance on my Wi-Fi, and there'd be vans outside, and I would take the kids out to fly kites. And then the city would dig up holes in my front yard, and my neighbors would complain. They'd say the kids are gonna fall in. And I was like, I think that's the point. This is not gonna be on the CFCR part. This is for those of you who subscribe. Okay. Let's put that in the right folder. Desktop. Oh, maybe I'll spell my name letting instead of leading so people can find me. Flying solely with Auntie Andy and reality. Okay. Okay. All right. New. Okay. All right. Welcome back to Homelands on CFCR Community Radio 90.5 FM in Saskatoon, Homelands of the Métis and Treaty 6 territory. This is Auntie Andy, your host, and I'm flying solo on my birthday, my 54th birthday, talking a little bit about my little adventures here in Saskatoon, my hometown. I was born here. I was raised just a short bit up the highway in a KKK town where we were the targets. And I've always walked very softly and carried a big stick. So you're welcome to listen to my introductions on my other Homelands episodes. Last episode 2 weeks ago was David FineDay. And July 21st, we went into City Hall and we said, you know what, you're in violation of Treaty 6 and Homelands of the Métis. I ought to know. Supreme Court Chief Justice is my great uncle, Emmett Hall, who they've named things after at the U of S. Even though he sent his baby sister Eileen there. And my sweet, sweet mama thinks she just drank too much because they pour alcohol down your throats on campus and then they do what they do. And we all know that the campus has the highest rate of you know what kind of assaults in this city. And Saskatchewan has the highest per capita domestic violence, murdered and missing, and S assault. That will keep it G-rated on a Saturday morning at 10:30 a.m. But yeah, the SSAIC is the fundraiser that I chose for my fundraiser year after year for my birthday on Facebook. You're welcome to follow me there. You can find me ANDRE A, which the government has taken away my accent. LEDDING, letting, as in sledding. My kids were the ones to point out that our last name would be very funny if we put it together, but I'll protect their anonymity. They don't have the same last name as me, and I didn't pick their names to go with my last name. I just stayed myself, and that's who I am. I'm also the advocate, which I think is very funny. But we're all supposed to be advocates for each other. I did let the city know, and I'm giving Chief David FineDay a rest because he came in right after he'd lost 3 people in his circle the Thursday after we went and saw the city. And they said, oh, we'll see you tomorrow at 4. And then they took a meeting, they took many notes, and they said, you know what? Thank you so much. Someday we'll have another meeting. And I went, oh, I know how bureaucracy works. And I filled out a little form, typety with my 8 little fingers, because the cops took my thumbs, with handcuffs that are too tight. And you say, loosen them, please. And they say, oh, like this. And they tighten them. And I always pass my vulnerable sector checks because I've never broken the law. But they are the law. It's a little bit of a problem. I did see a lawyer from the Listen Project this morning. And she did say she thought I should be able to go in for my FOIP and get my info on the files the police have on me. And so I'm going to pay my $20 one of these days. And yeah, they have some complaints. I would very gently go in and I'd just say, you guys need to investigate yourselves. And they go, well, we do. And I go, yeah, but nobody gets in trouble. And they're like, yeah, that's because we never do anything wrong. That's a basic summary. And, there's a little problem with that. So, yeah, it's kind of funny. It's kind of sad. I think it's kind of funny. I think it's kind of sad. The dreams in which I'm dying are the best I've ever had. I find it hard to take it. I find it hard to say. When people run in circles, it's a very, very mad world. Tears for Fears, but also there's some good versions of that song out there. Not Canadian content. I do apologize, but because I'm a Canadian singer, it is. So I will be singing this healing song at the end of this episode for everybody in this community. I sang it at Brother Andre's commemoration. Only his family was left. It was meant for everybody. But yeah, Brother Andre founded Straight Up. Now, I began as a Catholic journalist for the Prairie Messenger. I am the Prairie Messenger. I'm all that's left. Don Ward, my editor, has gone on to his heavenly appointment, but he did write me a strongly worded letter when the RCMP lied about me because they did not want me to get even a maternity position for the Star Phoenix as managing editor. So they refused to do an article I had been asked to do on drunk and distracted driving. The Regina police were great. They were like, told me all kinds of stories. The Saskatoon police were like, we don't really want to do an article with you. We know who you are. But fine, we'll do one. And they did. Kind of sent me a couple of merry-go-rounds before somebody did go on record. And then the RCMP communications person outright refused. He said, we know who you are, Letting. We have your number. We're not calling you back. And I went, okay, I'll just say the RCMP said no comment on drunk driving in this province. Because you do. And then you don't arrest yourselves. And I'm not saying that's what happens. But anyways, I just said, oh, fine, I'll say no comment, right? I'm very careful. I know they're recording me all the time. So then I got sent a contract the same day that those articles freelance were due. I had filed some from Europe where I got to go as a nanny for one of my last guests, Jess Iron. That show will probably rerun in August if I don't get around to doing another one, or I'm illegally detained in some way. But she's a yogi, and she posted on Facebook, hey, does anybody have their passport? And I went, oh, she needs someone to sign her passport. I happen to have one right now. And by the way, I don't have one right now. The police were in my house and they were in my office. And things go missing. My laptop went missing, it stopped working. I'm recording this live in CFCR. And yeah, I'm not accusing the police of anything. I would never, ever accuse the police of any wrongdoing. God knows they're all angels. They never do anything wrong. And they investigate themselves. It's fine. There's no problem. There's no problem, officer. All police are inherently good and would never abuse their power. We all know this. My parents love watching cop shows. They love them. Magnum PI, right? And police are all good. There are good cops, they would take a bullet for someone, but well, Blue Steel threatened one of my friends. They said they were a gang. And I said, yeah, Brother Andre covered this off years ago at my Prairie Messenger and Eagle Feather News, maybe, article about him. And Straight Up was founded for a gang exit strategy. And he said very wisely, all people are part of gangs. There's the nurse gang, the doctor gang, the police gang. There's the coffee gang. There's the KKK gang. There's gangs. People want to belong, and so they make up gangs. It's not just Indigenous peoples that do it, and they do it because of everything that's happened to them, and they need family, and that's the only way that they have family. So, I mean, I got it. I was like, yeah. I mean, I remember reading all kinds of books about. I don't know if you ever read the S.E. Hinton books with Ponyboy, Stay Golden Ponyboy, right? And of course, Romeo and Juliet, when it was redone as West Side Story with gangs. Shakespeare wrote about gangs, right? The Capulets and the Montagues. Families, right? It's just family. That's all it is. And I wrote my thesis, my second thesis, about Indian residential schools and the gangs being a direct fallout. And I just used Indigenous literature to show it. I just called it the Brotherhood of Man, which comes from a Richard Van Camp story. My cuz Richard, and Google him. He's amazing. He has a beautiful short story about how everybody started wearing their baby pictures and saying, "Oh, me, weren't you cute?" And we would all just love each other with our baby pictures and restore ourselves to that beauty and that innocence. Holding newborn babies is my favorite thing in the whole world. They are fresh from heaven, and you get the download. I love babies, and that was the best part, having my beautiful, beautiful, beautiful kids who I would do it all over again, over and over. Maybe I have, well, just to have them, wouldn't change anything. And, you're on CFCR, Community Radio, 90.5 FM in Saskatoon, Homelands of the Métis, and Treaty 6 territory. And this is Auntie Andy, coming at you from her 54th birthday on August 8th, 1971. But it's actually 2025, and she made it to 54 against all odds, including on July 15th of this year, a white supremacist cutting her off on the highway when she picked up a black passenger named Muhammad. He had 4 little kids, and she knew if she didn't pick them up, someone was going to pick them off. His truck was broken down on the side of the highway with 2 salvage cars he was taking back to Alberta to fix, and nobody would stop for him. He said, well, first time an elderly man did stop, and he was very kind. I'm like, yeah, I like old people and kids and dogs in this province. That's who I like. So I said, by the way, buckle up, because I knew what was coming. And he's like, everybody's swerving at us. I'm like, yeah, that's because I picked you up. And he's like, okay, really? And I said, yeah. And then he said, okay. And then I said, look out. And Dumpler, his vanity plate in a Subaru, cutting between us and a black truck, and braked hard. And I braked hard. And he didn't get me. So he braked hard again, and I braked hard, and he didn't get me. And he braked hard the 3rd time. And I had, $5,000 of damage. Plus, I was paralyzed on the left side because I'd actually died the first time in that car accident, but so had he. So I came back. And you can believe what you want about that, but I kept Sahil from Shoppers on the phone this time, the whole time. I'd just come from changing dressing for somebody who'd been sent home from hospital with the wrong side of wound care on purpose. And yeah, it's kind of the way healthcare is going here. You're either good or evil. Nurse, doctor, and all the unionized positions who usually are pretty good, actually. Like, they're the people I rely on in healthcare, yeah, there's some very, very good doctors, actually, that I've really come to appreciate. And there's some who just as soon see you dead. And that's not okay. That's not healthcare unless you spell it with 2 L's. And so, yeah, we have some problems to solve in this province, big problems, but they're worldwide. Doctors Without Borders is a thing for a reason. Universal healthcare was meant to be universal. And it comes from, like I said, the Treaty 6 Medicine Checks Clause, medicine for all peoples in time of need. And everybody's been abusing the system. Everybody. People who expect doctors to be at their beck and call 24/7, 365. And I grew up in a house on call. Nurse calling because she's like, I know you said I could give him 2 Tylenol, and I know it's 3 a.m., but is it okay if I give him 2 Tylenol? I was like, I'm 6 years old, nurse. I can hear your voice. Um, that's kind of a B move, and I'll keep it G rated. But yeah, waking up my dad, waking up me, and maybe waking up my baby brothers. So I had to put them back to sleep. And my mom was very tired because she was raising us by herself because everybody else wanted their doctor 24/7, 365. And then they complained if they waited too long. My dad is 80 years old and he's still practicing and he's known for hard luck cases. But he's getting tired. And then he gets audited because he spends time with people. He listens to them, which is what heals people. And they're like, you're taking too long and you need to do your paperwork more, which is not why doctors get into healthcare in the first place, to do paperwork, but they're being forced to. Workers' comp, EI, sick notes, you name it, right? Which is not why they get into it. And I'm like, I'm now legally responsible for stuff that shouldn't be. Like, there's issue after issue after issue. I know as a human rights intake officer, and everybody said, oh, that is the perfect job for you. And I was like, yeah, a little too perfect. The government is not happy I'm there. The first thing they did was get me my Department of Justice card, and they said, keep it on. I'm sorry your hair's windblown because you bike to work. We keep this on you at all times. And I'm like, even in the shower? And they're like, from what we understand, that's not a bad idea. And I went, oh, well, maybe people do know what people have been doing to me here. Um, so, yeah, I feel like the world's best kept secret, this little journalist that always knew too much and tried to keep secrets as best she could. Um, but I did tell my secrets to some people. I would say, there's an issue with this. There's an issue with that. Hey, by the way. And so there are people who will vouch for me when I step forward, as I'm doing today on my birthday, just to say that our culture, and you can spell it rope, because that's what they put around a duly elected MP's neck and hung him till dead at the RCP barracks, where they've now put up an airplane trying to hide it. And when I was asked to do a Canadian Geographic article on my uncle Louis Riel, because I asked him to be my godfather when I was 12 years old, because my godfather had left the church because of abuse, he said, sure, my girl. And so he's been my godfather and protector for 42 years, but longer than that. And Gabrielle Dumont, too. Labatt's Brewery was where Gabrielle Dumont Park is now. When I was in first year university, my roommate, who I didn't know from a hole in the ground, but I was forced to live with her because my music teacher said, oh, she's a very nice girl. And her former boyfriend from that year calls her she who shall not be named. She was not a very nice girl. She was setting out to get me badly hurt in bad ways. She set me up as tribute for the College of Engineering free beer night as a commerce student. The engineers and the agriculture used to have something called the E-plant and the Lady Godiva ride. And that year they got one that looked just like me. And they said, don't worry, she's just a hooker from Calgary. She just looks like you with brown skin. We got her drunk first. And I'm like, yeah, you tried to get me drunk. And I tried to get away from you guys all night. And I just about made it many times. Ended up face down in a hockey bag in a closet in Sheptitsky Institute. And everybody was like, what happened to Andrea in first year? She got mono and missed a bunch of her classes. I still got 100 in my law class because he taught by story. He was Jewish. Sam Goldstein was his name. And I was like, business law kind of makes sense. It's like I was always a lawyer. It's like I was the advocate. I remember him in particular looking right at me when he said, babies can inherit by law when mamas are pregnant with them, but you can still kill them? Funny, hey? And my dad was known for being a pro-life doctor, and everybody knew exactly who he was. I was his oldest daughter. And I thought it was really funny. In second year, the year after the College of Engineering beer night, where I did phone somebody collect. They were in Alberta, and they were somebody I loved, and I went, hey. And they answered the phone. If I could go back in time, I might have said, call my cousins. I need help. I'm at the park down. Maybe. But you don't put your protectors at risk. You know? They were big, strong, smart football players. And everybody respected my family. 5 years old, walking to kindergarten, a truck of men pulled up, and I knew they were going to come and get me. So I snapped my fingers, and my dog appeared and started crawling. The second time, the first time I cried. That angel dog scared them away the second time. And then I ripped my bag and told my kindergarten teacher a dog attacked me and I needed somebody to walk to school with me. And then Angela McDonald around the corner always walked to school with me after that. And sometimes Mona Friesen, who was an engineer, but she wasn't the tribute. I was. And I won't be ashamed of that. And I would not be ashamed to be called Lady Godiva. I would quite happily unzip my clothes if it would make the world a better place. And I have done so in my own office with the officers recording me. And I'm not sorry about that either. So I'm sorry to have a 10:30 episode where I discuss public nudity and privacy of my own home. But I do not apologize for the slight tears I'm shedding for Andrea Eileen Letting, whose grandmother never got her degree. And when she finally did get one, the only convocation she ever attended, her mother said, finally. And I went, really, Mom? But fair enough. Eileen finally got her degree. And that was why my one degree, well, I got 3 grad degrees in 3 years, 2. Sorry, I could have got my PhD, but I was like, do I want it from this university? I don't. They can give me a postdoc. And frankly, Lisa Vargo can plug mahone, as we say in Irish. You can look that Gaelic phrase up. She was like, oh, you stood up for your Indigenous students? Because Kevin Flynn, an Irishman, said that Indigenous culture is racist for having moonlodge teachings. Well, I guess you can't do your PhD. And I said, that's right. And she said, you know what, you can get an arts board grant. And I said, well, you get one every 4 years if you're lucky. And it's $6,000 for somebody who doesn't have a book. It's hard for 8 people to live on that. But thanks, I'll take that into consideration. And she said, oh, well, I mean, I didn't know that, but I've been on those adjudication panels before, and you can get money. so anyways, yeah, that was my little experience at the U of S, Moontime teachings. I did a monologue at Word on the Street about that, and just about the pipe and how it goes together. A gelder gifted me with a pipe. And I'm showing the YouTube people my medallion that has 2 bear claws for a mama bear and an opal wolf on turquoise. And yeah, my adopted sister is a wolf. And what's been done to her is not okay, and that's unfinished business as well. But I'm here to finish a lot of unfinished business. That's the great news. My name that I fasted for when Brother Andre died for 4 days, it's 4:44 as I'm recording this actually, on Friday, was Rainbow Promise Warrior Woman. And I thought that was a very good name. The promise was that Creator would never flood the world again, but man can. Man can melt the ice glaciers, which is exactly what's happening. I'm part of the Climate Justice Saskatoon, and so when they were meeting at Amigos, the police sent 3 unmarked cars, one blocking my driveway and one with a SWAT team, so I just took a nap. And then I walked my dog and I said, hey, Priya, that's her name. And she barked at them. She's a very good girl. She never gets shot. And I said, let's go, Priya. Leave the boys with their toys and their guns. And I gave them a little heart, or maybe I gave them you know, some straight up. And I might get that tattooed on my fingers. I wonder, STR8 up, maybe something like that on both fingers. And yeah, because I'm born 08/08/71. And straight up is where we're all going, unless you're going straight down. And as the advocate, I happen to have a lot of say in that. My ex once asked to come back from Alberta, and I said to him, okay, well, what's the deal there, buddy? You want me to cheat on the other woman? And he said, well, grass isn't any greener on the other side. And I said, that's because it's the same bowl. All you have to do is go to Alternatives for Men. He said, if that's the hill you want to die on, funny pun if you know who he is. And I said, no, that's the hill I'm going to live on. Thanks very much. So that was the end of that. But he did cheat on her. And she only lasted 9 years too, and she had 2 more kids with that guy. And yeah, he's gone on to serial positions, and he has a unionized pension job, and I don't. That's life. I'm a lawsuit waiting to happen in my mind. But as a woman who's going through perimenopause or menopause, I have a lot of righteous anger. And as a matriarch and an antarch, and that was my answer to the devil when he showed up at a Theology on Tap dressed as a priest, and time stopped, and I went, oh, who's this guy? I've seen him before. I mean, I'd never seen the priest. He was not a real person. He sidled up to me and said, that would be anarchy. And I laughed and said, well, then I'm the anarchy. And I walked out, and time resumed. I just thought I was kind of cool. I didn't know I was the advocate. But I've always had Jesus, Yeshua, Isho as my homeboy. He's always been in my heart. He's on my ring. Says Jesus. And then this band has 14 crosses for those of you who are on YouTube. This is my Holy Spirit ring. My husband kissed. This is my little decade that I do with my platinum wedding band underneath it. That was my great aunt's. I'm just showing on YouTube some of my rings. This was given to me by Pony. It's gold. Yesterday, my birthday. That's a blister I got from the adversary for my coffee this morning. Ugly, I'm sorry, but I know who my enemy is. And that's my birthstone that my parents gave me when I turned 12 for this. So we were International Family of the Year, and I was 16 and got marriage proposals from across the world, including the Philippines. And that was a lot of pressure at 16. I gave a very good speech to strangers in Vancouver. We stayed in the suite that the Queen stayed in. And then when I got a Sask Arts Award nomination, and my grandfather and 3 of my kids got to come, my mom said during God Save the Queen, don't stand, don't stand. So we didn't. We were the only people who did not stand. And there's an Irish woman. I'm not sorry. There is no honor in the crown. And I will be proving that in court if necessary. But I think we all know it. So yeah, this has been a special episode of Homelands on Homelands of the Métis and Treaty 6 territory. And here in Saskatoon, ground zero for a peaceful takeover of planet Earth with one woman, me, with my henna still visible from the Festival of India, where I first met with my Bishop John from Nigeria, because I'm part of the African Canadian Catholic community, which I'm very proud of. And then that's where my rainbow hair comes from. If you're on YouTube and can see it, and my rainbow ribbon skirt, I'm just standing up so you can see that. That's from Tala Tatusa. She's making me another one. I babysat her dog Katana while she took all the kids to the Sundance in South Dakota. So I did cross the medicine line. Like I said, I come from a kidnapped American. All weddings are American with dual citizenship. And I'm erasing the medicine line. J. Treaty Dawn Dumont should have been able to go anywhere she wanted. I'll be seeing her for my birthday tonight with her little son. And yeah, I did go ring the Round Prairie bell and say, bring her home safely, Creator. And that day, it was announced that she was coming home. So It is my fault, like they always say. It's the woman's fault when something happens. Yeah, it is my fault. I have a big mouth and an even bigger heart, and I'm not sorry. Canadians walk around saying sorry because they know what they've done to this land and to the peoples of this land. And apologies gotta walk. You know what I mean? If you've ever seen my play Dominion, and you can Google Cam Fuller's pan of it, because he's like, it shouldn't go on for 2 acts. That's too long for colonialism, right? I kind of said, like, when the first white woman read it and went, I hate this. I hate Marie Philippe. She's French. And also, yeah, solve colonialism if you're going to complain about it. And I was like, okay, it landed on a golf course. So it does. But yeah, there was lots of alternate endings to Dominion. My very first one, I had all kinds of people coming through, moving around like moose, and and yeah, it was really great. And that was my favorite version, but it had to get cut for the interest of space. But if everybody has to watch that in hell till they get it, so be it. Um, I wrote that play for everybody, and anybody who's seen it has gone, I get it. I get it. People argue about which character I am. They say, oh, you're a storyteller. Well, I did get my kids taken by the government, but I'm actually the little character who pops into the bathroom and says, Fakalan lay, a word a day. So learn a word a day in your language. It's a powerful thing. That's what I did when the internet was invented. So this is Auntie Andy signing off of a special edition of Homelands, and I'm going to Las Palapas now to meet with my family for a special birthday event, 5 to 11 at Las Palapas. And I'm sorry you won't get this in time to see me, but you do have a chance 1 p.m. at St. Mary's Our Lady of Guadalupe Church to come worship with Indigenous Catholics. We turn to the 4 directions. We smudged before, so come early, 1:45, St. Mary's on 20th. For my birthday. We'll sing happy birthday at the end. We always do that every mass. We just say, hey, does anybody have a birthday anniversary? And let's sing to each other. It's my favorite thing. So that's Sunday at 1 at St. Mary's Parish on 20th, just before St. Paul's. And I'm going to bring food to Prairie Harm after. Cupcakes, cakes, soup, bannock. I've got some made already. I always feed the homeless when they ask. And I ask for their prayers because their prayers are more powerful than anyone's. They can survive any, and they're my zombie apocalypse people. And you should all do the same. I may go on a hunger strike in September if this community doesn't change fast enough. But for now, I'm Auntie Andy signing off on CFCR Community Radio. Let's put the unity in community. Hi, hi. Okay, so that's my 2 episodes. I think it's pretty close to 27:30 each, which is what they're supposed to be. And I might be a little bit short, but that's okay. Better over short than under long. And now I have to go to my birthday party. So I'll just cue everything up and I'll go. Love you. Auntie Andy signing out. And don't you love my hair? I love it. I get so many compliments on it. Sharon Okiwiha, my sister, took me out for supper yesterday, and I met so many amazing people. There's so many amazing people in this city. They're so good, especially the women, right? And the men, they'll come along. They'll come along. Good men will. And I like to think every man's a good man. Just gotta dig hard. So, we got this, Saskatoon. I didn't sing the healing song, so I'll sing it for my subscribers. And you just sing that 4 times. This is Auntie. Great day, and thank you for being with me on my 54th birthday. Love you. And Louis Uncle Louis loves you too. And go, John. You got the rest of the world to save. You know, that's what you're going to do. I tied a sash around the equator. We're all Métis. We're all mixed. And, Métis people are the last nation invented on Earth. And if you watch the Norm Fleury first episode, and you can get it by métishomelands@gmail.com. And if you haven't found this one, I don't know how you'll find the rest. They hide them, but oh well. God bless.